is up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Run Pure Sports College Hoop Show. Saturday, January 27th. We're at the end of January already, right in the heart of conference play. It's been a really fun week for us at Run Pure. We got a couple members get qualifier seats. I got my first one. I was pretty lucky to do so, but we take those. We've got a Big 12 gamer today. Not like the best marquee games today, but still, we've got a $30 qualifier. We got a big 222 in the lobby. I think the big $15 5K to first. So that's starting to bump up a bit here for us, which is nice. I'll bring in Gav first. Gav, pretty frustrating week on your end, but we start anew with a new week this Saturday. What's up?
Yeah, I gave some homeless man some money yesterday, just hoping that it would bring me some good karma and stop running into injuries and fouls. So at least the good news is there's no Creighton game for me to fuck up who to play and who not to play. So, that's trending positively.
Yeah, no Creighton and no Arkansas, Kurt. So that's always good. Not having to guess who Muss is going to play, not play. They are a total dumpster fire right now. What's going on, man?
Not much. Going to head to Gasparilla after the show. So if anyone's in Tampa and is down there, hit me up. But before that, we got to get to some business. Hopefully we can get some injury news early so we can adjust. Pretty good slate here. This is a little tougher one without much value, which I like it. Making some decisions.
Yeah, not a ton of value, but we also don't have a Zach Edey on this slate. Highest price guy, Devin Carter at 9.3. A couple injury situations like Kurt said. We'll touch on those as we go. I think anticipating those and reacting and just kind of being ready for both sides of scenarios, I think is important on a big slate like this. But we'll touch on those as they come. Let's dive right into the games here. We got Georgia at Florida to kick us off. Georgia 70th at Ken Pom, Florida 35th. He's got at Florida 83-76. Gavin, pretty good pace to this game here. I haven't really messed with Georgia guys much this season. What do you think about this game here?
Yeah, it's Georgia's off the close LSU home win. After they played Kentucky close in Rupp, they had the lead on Tennessee 35 minutes through the game. It's definitely a better Georgia team than we've been used to the last couple of years. Going into Florida off 2 straight wins, but again, versus Mizzou and versus Mississippi State, they're 3-3 in the SEC. Still a lot of questions with this team, especially defensively, but we should see really good pace in this game. Florida's second highest transition shot frequency, Georgia 278th and allowing it at the 191st efficiency. So Florida should have success in that realm. We saw Georgia play the nuclear, I think 80-plus possession game against Kentucky. So it's definitely a spot that I think we're going to be interested in for DFS. I don't think a bunch of ownership is going to come in on the spot. So you might be able to find some plays, but yeah, everybody's pretty cheap in this game with a huge total. So, I think game stack is definitely an option for this one as well. I think let's talk about some of these guys.
Yeah, Kurt, we got a 160.5 total right now at DraftKings here. 2 teams that have decently spread usage. I know, especially on the Florida side, it can be one of a couple guys to lead them in usage each game. Do you have any DFS leans here in Georgia, Florida?
Almost got caught talking on mute. So yeah, as far as the notes go, I didn't realize how kind of I'm falling on a gross range at forward. So I ended up liking Russell T'Chawa a lot more than I thought I would. Like Gavin said, there's not going to be ownership, but the prices are right, and it's a good tempo game to where if you get the right 2, you're just setting so pretty right out the gate. It's definitely one you can stack up in the queue. If you have 7 entries, I would make sure I use one of those, stack up this game. Maybe you hit the nuts. As far as Florida goes, with all their bigs healthy now, it's kind of a tough situation. They're kind of riding the hot hand. I can't make out what they're really doing with the rotation. I know Samuel's not seeing mid-30s minutes. So he still has a huge ceiling, but I'd probably just rather play one of the guards. I'm going to go Clayton. I feel like both the guards have nice usage. It's a coin flip, but every 2 plays from this would be Russell T'Chawa and Mr. Clayton.
It's Chua. The T's silence.
T'Chawa. This is America, buddy.
Yeah. Gav, with these Florida guys, I'm kind of glad that they priced down the studs so they're all kind of the same price because like I said, it's kind of hard to peg which one's going to go off on each game. Any thoughts there? Any specific matchup that you think is better for any of these guys?
I don't know if anybody has a specific matchup that's better for him on the Florida side in this case. You're going to have Clayton and Poland on the floor almost at all times. It's like the Khalil Shabazz, Jamare Bouye that Todd Golden had at USF. Poland is definitely less of the defender than Clayton is, so whoever draws that matchup, I don't think it'll be Demery, which I just learned that's how you say his name watching a couple Georgia games this week. So, yeah, that's a good question. How do you start ranking these guys? I would call Poland a little bit more of a floor cash kind of play, where I think Clayton has a lot more ceiling if things start going right. Clayton also had a lot of big games before Poland came back onto the floor. So, yeah, I'd probably go Poland for cash, Clayton for GPP. The two Georgia guys are probably priced a little bit too close to Clayton and Poland for me to get interested. Chua now up at 5'8". God, I called the double in Discord last week or against LSU, and sure enough, the fucking guy did it. So now he's priced up $700 going into the teeth of the Florida defense. So yeah, I think you can mix him in for GPP as well. And then Kugel is interesting. Hasn't really run into foul trouble even in these last three games when his minutes have dipped, or last two games. The 3 fouls is a little bit deceiving because he didn't pick up his third foul until 10 seconds left in the Missouri game. So it's not like he was facing foul trouble. So he's going to be another GPP mix-in. If Will Richards hitting shots, he's going to be the hot hand. So yeah, that's probably how I'd rank him in that way. Clayton, Poland, and then after that it gets hairy.
Yeah, I think I'm Clayton, Samuel, then Poland. We've got a pretty good projection on Samuel. His price has come down a bit. We've seen him have big games. Not really scared of Georgia's interior defensively here. We saw Will Richard blow up for a random game. He's going to do that from time to time when he hits shots. But yeah, this is a really fun game for the Q with the 160.5 total. And like these guys said, no one's a super comfy click on either side. So this is like a game stack. Hope it goes off. That's what worked out for me in that Bama Auburn game with a total that was pretty similar to this. So, interesting game to start us off. Let's go to the Big Ten. Nebraska at Maryland. Nebraska 45th at Ken Pom. Maryland 67th. Gav, Maryland coming off what I thought was a pretty impressive road win at Iowa with Jameer Young just kind of taking over down the stretch, had the game winner there. What are our game notes here? Ken Pom's got it Maryland 70-69, but the spread's out to 5 here.
Yeah, it's probably because Nebraska's off the 2 straight good wins, Northwestern and Ohio State. Both were also at home. The last 2 road games they played, they lost, and it wasn't against the upper echelon of the Big Ten. It was at the RAC and at Carver Hawkeye. So losing to Rutgers and Iowa on the road doesn't bode well. College Park, as we know, can be a pretty elite atmosphere. For what it's worth, Maryland 4 straight shot quality losses and damn near 6 straight. So there might be a little bit of fortunate shot making, but completely opposite defensive schemes. Where Maryland's going to run you off the 3-point line at the 11th best rate in the nation. Nebraska's a pretty compact defense that's going to force you to shoot over the top of them. Outside top 300 in defensive 3-point rate, but they have the 7th best defensive open 3 rate. So they are contesting shots, even though, they're kind of forcing you to shoot over them. In that case, it's probably a bump to on the Maryland side. Deshaun Harris-Smith can't fucking shoot for anything.
God, he's been bad.
Yeah, it's been ugly. So maybe that helps a Geronimo or a Long or a Kaiser, who might have a little bit additional opportunity to hit threes. But more of the news with Juwan Gary being out on the Nebraska side, it's probably more appealing DFS side of this game.
Yeah, Kurt, we saw Gary miss their last game during the week. CJ Wilcher stepped right into 30 minutes. And Rink Mast obviously decimated the slate. One of our subscribers, Dane, took down the queue with a 5% owned Rink Mast in that game. Tougher spot here, obviously. Julian Reese has been pretty elite defensively, I think. Lots of blocks and has really avoided fouls at home. What do you like here DFS-wise? And does the Juwan Gary news bump you on to like a Wilcher or a Lawrence or one of the cheap Nebraska guys?
It brings him in play, but I'm scared. All these like cheap Nebraska guys are just never good to me, even in their. It's gross. I'm going to add him to the pool now, but I don't feel great about it. I really wish it was for some reason Wilcher or Lawrence were forward eligible somehow, because Josh Alec is just not a good fantasy player whatsoever. He's just out there for the vibes and plays some defense. I probably will click Alec because I keep coming to that stupid ass range of 5.1K forward. And like, so yeah, I'll probably click him. He'll probably get me like 13 fantasy points and play 1,000 minutes like an idiot. I'm not going to talk anyone off Julian Reese or Jameer Young. Like their floor is awesome. But for the Bryce Williams, like under 7K, if this game does get going a little bit, maybe. But for the most part, take a stab at some of the cheap Nebraska guys, and I'm not going to play it. But just nothing really stands out here. It's like a 12-game slate. I would much rather just find like additional money and get up to Devin Carter than play one of the Maryland guys. But yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat there, Gav. But I think Reese is interesting. Like both Reese and Young, I think are interesting for that $30 queue just because they do have that 40+ upside at home. Maryland games have been pretty nasty as far as pace. What are your thoughts on Gary missing as far as how that impacts Nebraska for DFS? And then quick thoughts on the Terp studs.
Yeah, I'd probably bring CJ Wilcher back into play for sure, whereas I probably wouldn't have played him if Gary was out. I wouldn't take his 30-minute, 12-shot attempt with 3-assist game as kind of like a median outcome. I would say that's definitely towards the higher end of his range of outcomes for that game. So
I wish he was like mid-4s,
Yeah, now he's on the road against a team that runs you off the line and a pretty good defense. You have Wilcher, you have Lawrence in the pool. I'd probably lean Lawrence a little bit just because I just don't trust CJ Wilcher, man. Like we know what we got with him after these last couple of years. Yeah. You're mixing in Bryce Williams into the pool. I get where you're coming from with Young and Reese. I think there's another mid-8 guy though that I'd probably rather play than them that has equal or better upside in a way better game environment. Other than that, like. I don't think you're really playing Geronimo. I don't think you're playing Deshaun Harris-Smith. I think, it's probably mainly the two cheaper Nebraska guys. And if you want to mix in one of the studs, and then you probably have Bryce Williams in the pool as well.
I think Wilcher's going to project pretty well. I think that's a big decision is do you use a 5K CJ Wilcher on a 12-game slate? But like we said, value's not great. And depending on how news goes here, it could be even worse. So, but keep that in mind. All right, let's go to a couple gross games here. We'll get these out of the way quick. Kansas State is visiting Houston. Houston has just been locking teams up in conference play, Gav. Kansas State 60th at Ken Pom. Houston number 1 at Ken Pom. He's got it 71.54. Really tough to click any K-State guy on a 12-game slate at Houston, even at these price tags. Gav, thoughts overall? Houston minus 15, 128 tote here.
Yeah, you won't ever find me clicking an opponent on the road in Houston. They've just been slaughtering teams since they lost those back-to-back games, kind of like Purdue's been doing. You trip up a little bit, and then you recalibrate, and you just start slamming these teams. But K-State 4-0 at home in conference, 0-2 on the road. And if you just struggled with a loss at Iowa State, who has a pretty frenetic hard closeout, no middle defense, which is exactly what Houston is going to deploy, then there's a lot that does not bode well for them. One thing that they do have in their favor is, they are getting to the free throw line at a pretty good rate. Kansas State and Houston can foul the shit out of you at times. They're at home, so maybe that doesn't come as much to fruition. But the K-State 340th in turnover percentage versus the third best defense in forcing turnovers on the road. Brother, Houston's 6th best offensive rebounding rate versus K-State 272nd allowing it. So they're going to play right into Houston's hands in terms of letting them live off of just turnovers and offensive rebounds. So, yeah, line makes sense. DFS game obviously is pretty damn gross. Usually if you are going to play someone against Houston, it's probably a 3-point shooter because you're going to have to skip the ball and you're going to have to shoot over the top of this defense. So, maybe Tyler Perry is good in that sense, but they're going to limit transition. So Cam Carter and Kaluma are going to be up against it. I think if you look at anything in this game, it might be one Houston guy max.
Yeah, Kurt, let's talk about the Houston guys real quick. We've got Shed priced up because he's just been awesome lately, but tough to play him at 8K, I think, here. My issue with Houston is they don't push their studs to max minutes and blowouts, and I think that they could just kind of pull away from K-State here. What do you think DFS-wise for Houston?
I think if it stays close enough, like Juwan Roberts always has that 50-point freaking ceiling, so I think that's possible. He just combines a block game with a double-double and game he's scoring, then ceiling is the roof. I'm going to probably mix in a little bit Emmanuel Sharp. He's my kind of play. He's been shooting fucking terrible, and we know that I love guys who have been shooting like ass. So Emmanuel Sharp, a little bit of Roberts for me, and that's it. And like Gavin says, Max Juwan.
Yeah, Emmanuel Sharp, 6 of his last 28 from the field. So he's gonna find some positive regression at some point. Could very likely be at home against an undersized K-State backcourt. At home. Yeah,
Gav. Kurt was talking about how forward's a bit tough, especially in the mid-range. Any Francis for you here at 5'3", and then talk about these guys. We do have that $1 150 max that I know a lot of people watching are going to play. So maybe a different, I would have more interest in something like that for Houston guys, I think, than like playing them on a main team.
That makes sense. Francis. What's he going to be on? 5-7%. If you want to play 10% of them and be 1.5 to 2x the field, fine. I don't know how much I love the play, but I get it. Yeah. You can definitely beat K-State inside, but I'd probably rank them Roberts and Sharp as kind of GPP mix-ins, and then Francis even a little bit less of a GPP mix-in, but still in the pool.
All right, let's go to another gross game here. We've got – why is this on the slate? Virginia at Louisville. Virginia 65th at KenPom, Louisville 198 KenPom. UVA's -9 here, Gav, 129.5 tote. I basically only listed Beekman, Dunn, and maybe a McNeely on the playbook. What do you got here for this game? Let's keep it short.
Yeah, Virginia 3 straight wins, 5-3 in the ACC. Remember how damn bad they were, early in conference. Now they're 5-3. They're also 361st away from home, so that doesn't bode well going into Louisville. God, yeah, Louisville 307th in 3-point rate, 299th in assist rate. That's not how you unpack the pack line. So, it's high ISO, which is just not going to go well. So, I agree with you. Beekman, Dunn, McNeely, maybe even a Huntley Hatfield. Like the shot volume is definitely there, and 10 plus shots in 5 straight games, 10 plus points. So. I definitely don't love it, but I think some people might click on it. But I don't think there's a whole lot in play in this game in general.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned any bets so far. Lots of not odd, but we didn't love a lot of pre-flop totals and spreads. I think this is going to be more of a live betting day for me, Gavin. I did take Louisville's team total under 60.5 here. I would be surprised if they scored over 60. Kurt, any DFS looks here in this game?
None for me, but I think if you are entering that 150 max, like I said, forward's bad. I would keep Curtis Williams in the pool. Maybe he just grinds you enough to get there. That's all I'm saying. Just leave him in the pool. Obviously, don't be overweight. Just try to get a little bit because forward's really bad.
Yeah, I played his ass on Tuesday. I'm not doing that again. But I also play less lineups than you do. So
we didn't.
I'm not even maxing the day because I have something to do. But I'm just saying, if I was, I would keep him in the pool, see if he hits.
Yeah. What's up, Gav?
I was saying we didn't bring up Jordan Minor, who's had a pretty good positive trend in terms of minutes and production starting for him. This was the Merrimack player who was like conference defensive player of the year. He also sat in the middle of a MEAC zone, which I'm sure helped. So, but at 5'8", now on the road in an awful tempo game, I think this is where I'm getting off 100% and kind of hoping people are just continuing to click them.
Yeah, we got our money from Jordan Miner. It's time to hop off. All right, let's go to the Big East. Georgetown at Providence. We got the Ed Cooley game here, Gav. This is going to be awesome. If you watch this on TV, the fans at Providence are not going to greet him well. Definitely have this on. Georgetown 176 at Ken Palm, Providence 47th. Gav, I'm seeing Providence minus 12 with a 142 total. What do we got here?
Yeah, they took a ton of money. I think they were like 9.5 last night. How much of that is people piling in on the steam of the Cooley narrative? I don't know. Probably is a fair amount of it, but yeah, dude. This legit could be the most hostile college basketball environment of the entire season. Like, I advise you go back and watch Chris Beard's return to Lubbock and go watch how absolutely batshit those fans were that game. The dunk is going to be insane tonight or this morning, I guess. The return is pretty nuts. Yeah, like you said, Providence fans are not going to be happy. But Providence, they do have 2 straight road wins. They also crushed DePaul and they beat Seton Hall without Kadari Richmond. So take that for what it's worth. So this is a pretty good, bounce back spot. Definitely something that we're going to have to look at for DFS. Should get pretty good pace here. Decent total, not great, but probably in the middle of the slate in terms of pace and tempo.
Yeah, we got Tanner in the chat. Was it that bad? Him leaving? Yes, it was.
Yeah, dude, he was.
It was like where he went too.
He was born and raised in Providence, dude. Like little ass. You ever see Rhode Island on the map? And it's like that little tiny ass state. Like that's where Ed Cooley was from. Coaches Providence, takes them back to the NCAA tournament, wins the Big East, and then bounces for Georgetown. They're going to be so
for
pissed.
Another Big East team too.
They're going to be so pissed.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Matt, under yesterday because my parents were in town, but mid-teens, I'd say. Kurt, DFS, we've got studs in this game, starting with our guy Devin Carter. Why don't you talk about him? Like he didn't play very well in that Seton Hall game. Still got to 35. Thoughts on him, and then Oduro in the mid 7K range is I think a really good play as well. We've got a good projection on him. What do you think DFS wise in this one?
I think if you're playing a stud today, you're just going to get up to Carter. That's what I'm trying to do. It's just he didn't even play that. I felt like nothing was really kind of going his way that last game, and he still just grinds out like a borderline triple double flirt. So it's just, and this is a good game environment. So give me some of that. Him going against his old coach, a little extra motivation, as if he needed any more motivation. Aduru, if he still has foul trouble, like just been awesome on the interior. He's kind of like a little bully too. I like it. He's got to stay out of foul trouble though. And maybe if you don't have Carter and you still want a piece of this game, I'd probably go Oduro, Big Josh, Big Fatty. I don't mind Epps, but I can't find myself paying like $7,900 for Jaden Epps. I just can't. And I don't really feel comfortable with anyone else in this game, to be honest. I will keep, if you're doing 150, maybe keep Masood in the player pool, maybe.
You keep trying to make Masood happen.
I didn't like it last time, but it fit what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't get freaking Susan Boyle. God, that tilts me. Because if I would have had him, we would have had us a little sweat off.
Great game.
Gav, anyways, not comfortable with anything else.
Yeah, Gav, for me, I think it's just Carter and Oduro here. Thoughts on those two, and then anyone else in play for you in this game?
Yeah, I mean, those guys might be two of the 5 to 7 best plays of the slate. If I was running GPP, I think it would be really hard to run a lineup without one of those guys. Like I would almost make a rule one in every single lineup, because if Oduro stays out of foul trouble,
you don't say that very often either.
No, if Oduro stays out of foul trouble, he's going to smash this price. It's a little bit harder for Devin Carter to really smash the price. He can put up 30 in this spot, 30 real points for sure with peripherals. But the 9.3K obviously leaves you a little bit more hamstrung, but it's also like a unique role in college basketball. Like we saw with KJ Simpson, with multiple guys on his team, or I guess a serious guy usage wise on his team down and just soaking up so much usage himself.
Yeah.
I think Epps is interesting for GPP. The Providence 1 through 5 switch means that Epps could find himself with some pretty appealing matchups, whether it's Oduro switched out onto him or like a ticket gains that might not be, quick enough to guard him in space. Epps has some upside, I think, in this spot. If he's going to take 18 plus shots a game, like he's going to hit value probably, more than 50% of the time. So, under 8K, you're mixing him in. Styles more of a cash guy, but don't really love him on this spot in the road on a 12 gamer. We played him on the shorts, or I played him on the short slate, but much different slate context, I think, this time around. So definitely start with the two Providence guys and then Epps. And then are we doing anything with ticket gains in Jordan and Jaden Pierre?
Yeah, man, there's kind of in like a weird price range. I almost never find myself in the 6Ks unless there's like someone who just projects crazy, right? Full time in the chat, Gav is asking any love for Supreme Cook here.
A little bit, yeah. I'd keep him in the pool. He's been pretty consistent, at least production wise. The minutes can get a little squirrely. The drop in Xavier minutes is due to foul trouble on the road. Providence is going to attack the rim. So does he have block upside? Yes. Does he also have foul upside because of that? Yes. Definitely keep him in the pool as well. I would say he can beat that 6.8K price.
The more I look at this game, the more I like it for like the qualifier, kind of stacking it up a bit. I think it's going to go under owned outside of Carter.
Oduro will be one of the highest owned guys on the slate.
Yeah, well, those two guys, I mean. And like we talked before the season, Gavin, the Big East preview, about how Cooley, once he finds his guys, he just rides them for max minutes. Jaden Epps is definitely his guy now. Epps 18 plus shots in 4 straight games, played 38, 37, 38, and then even 32 minutes in that game that they lost by like 40 to Butler. I think Epps, that's a good call there, especially for the Q. You're getting 18 plus shots and max minutes in a trailing script. I think that's interesting. All right, let's move on. Seton Hall, Marquette, staying in the Big East here. Seton Hall 61st at Ken Palm, Marquette 17th, coming off that win at DePaul on Wednesday. I went to that one. That was a fun game. Marquette -9, 145.5 total here, Gav. Big news here is the Kadari Richmond injury. We got that kind of out of the blue earlier this week. So this is our first big injury spot. You have to kind of be ready either way here. Game thoughts on this one? I know it's a way different game if he's in versus if he's out.
Yeah. First with game notes real quick, just, Marquette 3 straight wins after they had those 2 puzzling losses, at Seton Hall and versus Butler. The rotation is also, cut down. They've had 2 guards get hurt since that game. But Seton Hall's been playing well too. They have lost 2 straight after starting 6-1, but it also was the 3 overtime loss to Creighton, and then they lost to Providence without Kadari. So, obviously, if Kadari is out, then you're playing Coleman. Isaiah Coleman had a great game last time out without Kadari. He's going to be the main point guard. I think the thing that people are going to overlook in this spot, though, without Kadari. In Kolek's last 3 games against Kadari, I think he has like 11 or 12 combined points going back to last year. I think this opens up Kolek big time too.
Yeah.
At 8-8, he can definitely 50 in this spot. Seton Hall allows a pretty high assist rate, pretty high 3-point rate, and if without Kadari putting pressure at the point of attack, if Kolek is getting into the lane, he could double in this spot with points and assists. So I think Kolek's a really interesting GPP mix in. Cam Jones, again, that 6-7 range. Like he hasn't had a couple of great games, but he has scorched Seton Hall the last 3 times they played. So, yeah, I think that's probably the main thing. You know, I mean, Alamir Dawes shot his ass off without Kadari. Is he going to get another 20 shots without him? Maybe. But yeah, that's mainly where I'm looking for DFS.
Yeah, Kurt. The big thing for me with Marquette is without Chase Ross and Jones in the mix, they basically had to jam Kolek and Oso every minute, which just opens up the ceilings for these guys. We see Kolek under 9K here. Oso just dominated DePaul on Wednesday. What do you got here DFS wise? Really interesting news spot here with Kadari.
Simple for the. I just reiterate everything that Gav said with the Seton Hall news of Kadari's out. If he's in, I don't really have much interest in anything. If I'm not playing up for Devin Carter, assuming Kadari will be out, I really like Kolek as my next spend up. Probably tied with O'Meara. And then as far as Marquette goes, like Cam Jones shot like ass on the road, comes back home, gets a team he likes to shit on. Obviously, I think the minutes get bumped up if he's shooting the ball well up to like maybe mid-30s here. I think he makes for a really fun GPP play.
Yeah. Also, he just burned everyone like 3 days ago too. So
I didn't play him that day. So yeah.
Well, he was pretty high up. Yeah.
I'm glad I missed the memo.
Yeah, but yeah, I think Kolek a much better play if Kadari's out. You're playing Isaiah Coleman if Kadari's out. I don't truly buy the Dawes game, Gav. I think that's a decision point here. Like, do you play Dawes again at 7-1? I know Turtle played him on his main team at like 6-6 on Wednesday when we got the Kadari news. Any last words here on this game, Gav?
There is one other guy. I'm into the pool here. Can I interest you in any 3.5K Zayd Lowry?
So he's starting to play more. He was so bad in that DePaul game. He was like not on the same
that's why
page.
He's 3.5K, because he sucks at basketball.
So I think I'd rather just pay an extra $700 for Ben Gold, who like has, I think, a decent role on this team. You know, he finally hit a couple threes. I think he had missed like 15 in a row before that DePaul game. We kind of like playing these ancillary guys more at home. I think both of those guys are interesting because they're so cheap. And like I said, like Marquette just doesn't have the bodies right now. So give me your Lowry spiel.
Just, I mean, with Trey Norman, they mixed him in a little bit, and Shaka realized like he's somehow even worse than Lowry. So he's been, generally stapled to the bench. Gold is interesting. You might be needing Oso fouls to really have Gold's, hit value. But yeah, I think, look, 3.5K when you have, like I said before the show started, there's probably 3 7K guys that are 1,000 underpriced. I'm going to try to jam all 3 of them. I've played worse than a 3,500 Zayd Lowry to fit in some of these guys. That's all I'll say.
That's true. All right, let's move on here. Kansas at Iowa State, going to the Big 12. Kansas down to 18th at KenPom. I actually took a stab on a Kansas future this week. I wish I'd waited till after this game because they're a dog on the road at Iowa State. Kansas 18th, Iowa State 12th at KenPom, Gav. I'm seeing Iowa State -4.5, 142 total. A bit higher of a total than we see from Iowa State, but Kansas will push the pace with them here. Both teams in the top 125-ish in tempo. What do you think?
Yeah, it's wild. How about Iowa State ranked above Kansas? Like, whew.
Yeah.
I mean, Otzelberger's doing an incredible job, but yeah, everyone was, making a big deal about the Johnny Furphy hero game against Cincinnati. And, Kansas is so good if they're going to get this from Furphy. My take was like, if they got that from Furphy and still couldn't cover against Cincinnati at home in a bounce back spot after just a terrible loss in Morgantown, like I still got mega worries with this Kansas team. They're 40th in shot quality, like just efficiency rankings, the 40th best team. So there's bigger holes than the media has been able to uncover. Like Fendler has said, just they're winning, so people aren't really looking into the issues. But yeah, this is a fucking brutal spot, man. I mean, Iowa State won at TCU without Tamin Lipsey. I mean, holy shit. They're 8-4 ATS last 2 years in Big 12 home spots. And they have the number one home court advantage on Ken Pom in the conference. It's really Hilton magic. It's wild. So, yeah, this is a rough spot for Kansas. Iowa State being dead last 362 away from home equally means that they're as good at home as they are terrible on the road. So, yeah, I don't really love it. It feels like a spot where Kansas might just somehow Bill Self grease this thing out by like 1 or 2. But, yeah, this is a rough spot for him overall.
Yeah, interesting matchup note here. Iowa State, top 5 in 3-point rate allowed. Kansas does not really like to shoot threes. I think they're like 330th in 3-point rate. Be interested to see if they kind of fall into that and jack up a bunch of threes. I think that's how they lose this game. But yeah, Kurt, DFS-wise, we saw Tamin Lipsey come back. This is the cheapest we've seen him all season here at 7.2. Gotta love him here. Thoughts on him? And then the KU prices. We haven't seen Dickinson or KMC this cheap since before like Thanksgiving, I think.
Yeah, the McCullough thing is very enticing. I mentioned another thing for the 150. I'd probably want to be overweight, depending on what you can kind of garner, what his ownership will be. I have a hard time getting in that range because, like I said, I'm playing Carter or Kolwick if I'm around the 8Ks. Lipsky's like a core play for me. I went to Peeve. I'm guessing Gavin harped on him too. It's just an easy play. The guy who was approaching 10Ks, and when they were playing like Power 5 non-con games, so I think he finds it here. Huge game. I love that it's at home. Kansas doesn't scare me as much as they used to. So give me all the Lipsky. There's a lot of lines I have where Lipsky and Bakar, like I have like 3-7K guys, and it's just holds itself.
Yeah, Gav, thoughts there, and then we didn't get any KU DFS takes from you here with the price coming down. And then lastly, I have Robert Jones here in the pool at 4.6. Just because forward's kind of gross and value's kind of gross. Any thoughts there too?
You said whose price was down?
The Kansas studs are down under 9K for the first time in a while.
Yeah. I mean, I think that what those two guys are going to be, now we're talking about the later windows of games. I think they're going to be more late swap options than guys that you're really looking to target pre-flop, thinking that they're going to, 4 to 5x their value. I'm with Kurt. Like 7.2K Tamin Lipsey. I don't care if he was playing the fucking Boston Celtics. I'm playing him. That's just a fucking joke of a price. He might be 2K underpriced, not 1K. Yeah, I'm all right with Robert Jones in the pool. Like, the Trey King, Robert Jones, Hassan Ward kind of forward trio. The minutes can bounce up and down a lot with these guys game to game. Hassan Ward has been the most productive and on a per minute basis for these guys, but also has, probably the most propensity to foul. And then King and Jones kind of play a more similar bruiser power forward role. So yeah, if you want to mix those guys in, it's like if you land on a last man in, or you need to get onto them going down from somebody, like to late swap, I'm all right with that. But again, I don't think other than Lipsey, I'm probably not going into the start of the slate with anybody else from this game on my main team.
Yeah, I think Furphy's emergence has kind of hurt the ceiling of Dickinson and McCullough.
Neither of those guys are 100% either.
Yeah, and like Furphy's 30% rebound rate, like that's huge, and it eats into the ceilings of these guys. We've seen the exact same thing at St. John's with Soriano, right? Like with Luis coming back, all of those guys. I think it's not as extreme as that. Like I don't think these guys are going to fall where Soriano has, but it just kind of hurts their ceiling, right? Like Dickinson's not going to have an 18 rebound game if Johnny Furphy's grabbing 8 a game, So, all right, let's move on. Let's stay in the Big 12 here. Texas Tech, OU. Texas Tech 29th at Ken Pom, Oklahoma 28th. I see it OU minus 3.5, 145.5 total here, Gav. What do we got here game-wise?
Yeah, Texas Tech. How about best offense in Big 12 conference play so far? 4-1 so far. Off the home win against BYU after they got pasted at Houston, which I don't you don't count against them. OU off the really bad loss to UT. They're 351st in momentum, so they are cheap. OU in a good home spot against a hot team who's shooting over their skis efficiency-wise in conference play. But yeah, OU, 7th highest frequency of shots in transition. And this Texas Tech team, like, we thought going into the year that this was just going to be the cookie cutter, same exact team as like the North Texas, super slow, no middle defense, stuff like that. It's not. I mean, Ross Hodge was the guy who really did the North Texas no middle, and he's still the coach there. Kind of like when Beard left Mark Adams and left the no middle. So Tech's allowing a pretty high rim frequency, 15th highest in the nation, which is like polar opposite of the no middle. So at the 174th point per possession, I think that's a bump for definitely OA first, probably McCollum second, and then Uzan, but definitely have to take that into consideration. I think actually a little bit sneakier spot DFS wise. Like I don't see a bunch of ownership coming in on this game. And there's guys with definite 4.5 to 5x ceiling in this spot, just with some of the pricing.
Yeah, weird to see a Grant McCaslin team inside the top 300 in tempo. Texas Tech's in the 285 right now at Ken Palm. Kurt, Gav alluded to it. We've got some pretty good pricing, especially on the OU guard trio here. OA down at 6K. We know that he has ceiling. And then Warren Washington. He's been great of late for Texas Tech, jamming a lot of minutes. What do you think DFS-wise here?
I read about in the playbook as far as they're really tempting us with these OU guard backcourt prices. I mean, we know the ceiling they have. I've never get them right, but if you fall in the range there, I think there is a ceiling to be had. I don't love this game. I don't mind Washington. I think I'm not really intimidated by Hughley, fat ass, like even when he's out there. And falling 7,200 in the forward range, I don't mind that. I'm not playing Pop Isaac off the 50 burger. So I'm gonna be honest, I'm not playing anyone from this game, but like I could see one of the OU guys going nuke.
Yeah, we've seen Joe Toussaint kind of revert into the guy that we thought he was. He's kind of struggled in conference play here. Gav, for me, I think it's OA 1, Warren Washington 2. Anything else from this game here for you?
I'd say OA 1, Toussaint 2, Washington 3 for me.
Okay,
but nothing much more to add.
All right, we got 4 more games here. We're at 9:45. We gotta hustle a little bit. Let's go to Texas BYU. Texas 36 at Ken Palm. BYU up to 9th at Ken Palm. I did not see this coming this season, Gav, for BYU. They are laying 7 to Texas here, 140 or 150.5 total. I took the Texas plus 7. I didn't love it, but that's a lot of points for a team like BYU to be giving a team that's just much more physical than they are as far as talent. Thoughts on the game here? I'm not as dialed into BYU as you are, though. So what do you think?
Yeah, the totals actually moved down a little bit. I kind of think this thing could easily go over. BYU is one of those teams that they're just going to chuck so many three-pointers. There's going to be a good amount of game-to-game variance with them. But if they're hitting three-pointers in this spot, like, it's going to be tough for Texas to keep up. BYU is just such a much more diversified offense in terms of how they get their scoring versus funneling so much through, A. Smith and Dessou. Dessou. He's had some blow-up spots, like when he's played 29 plus minutes, he's pretty much nuked his price every time. It's a pretty good spot for him not to foul. It is on the road, but BYU's 352nd in rim frequency and 360th in free throw rate. Like, if there is going to be a matchup, he doesn't foul. I would sure hope it's this one. So I think Dessou's pretty interesting, but on the BYU side, it's like they run it's kind of like an inverted, weird flex type spread offense where they pull Khalifa and Waterman up to like the 3-point line and run a lot of zoom actions off them. but like it's a lot of the scoring is coming also through the guards with Trevin Knell, Spencer Johnson, Jackson Robinson, is going to project really well. I imagine he's going to be their main usage shot guy. He started the last 3 games, his only 3 starts of the season, trending in the right direction. And then Dallin Hall, the point guard. I love this spot for Dallin Hall. You get a pretty green baby shit soft matchup at home against ASMUS. Like that's about as good as it's going to get for him in the Big 12. There's a couple good BYU spots. I think playing nobody from this game is bad. So you're probably going to need one.
Yeah, we got a big team total here, Kurt, for BYU. They're up at 80 at Ken Palm. Gavin mentioned Dessou. He's had some foul issues, but when he's been able to stay on the court, he has just smashed. Any DFS plays here for you? This is a big total.
Gavin was talking all that shit about the notes being good, and if he goes and reads them, it's basically saying exactly what he said all show for almost every single game. I mean, I talked about how you need one of Carter and a Duru. I talked about how I think it's pretty smart if you fade Carter to play a Duru. And then everything he just said about the Texas BYU game is what I said. I don't want to come away fading this game. I know there's no play that's like, okay, I got to play this guy from this game, but find a way to just get one guy in. If you think Dessou plays 32 plus minutes, chances are he's probably going to flirt with 50. I mean, that's the type of player he is. Max Aisman at 7,700, like he's not going to project well, but would I be surprised if he goes for 40? Not really. On the other side, just the rates are screaming Jackson Robinson to me, but I think this is an interesting spot to kind of take Gavin's word for it, because obviously I'm not out here jerking and watching every single BYU game and looking at every BYU stat, but I know Waterman's a stretch 5, so I like that, what he can bring to the table. But the Dallin Hall call, he's not projecting well. No one's going to have him. It's a good game environment, so someone I will have in the pool now, because I was just going mostly Jackson Robinson and Waterman, but I'll bump up a little bit of Hall due to what Gavin just said. And I think I mentioned the playbook. Tyrese Hunter is always fine for cash, but there's a lot of really strong guys in this range, especially for a game coming up. So I don't really feel the need to do that. But yeah, just make sure you get a piece here, especially one of those guards for BYU.
Hey, Gavin, why don't you talk real quick through the BYU DFS pieces before we move on?
Yeah, Hall, the usage hasn't been as great, partly because Trevin Knell has had a couple games where he just hasn't missed, and him or Spencer Johnson any given game can chuck their ass off if they're hitting shots. But he's going to produce the best peripherals for you. I would say that him and Robinson are pretty clearly, the 2 best plays from this game. A little bit in a tier of their own. I think then Dessou is afterwards, but yeah, Spencer Johnson and Trevin Knell. Oh man, like the off-ball guard minutes, because Jackson Robinson's in that same conversation is going to be tough, because one of these guys is going to get squeezed on minutes, unless they all just play like 24-25. Whereas I think Dallin Hall's minute floor as the real point guard of the team, I think is much safer. So that's partly how I landed on Hall: peripherals plus minute floor plus 3 off-ball guards trying to all squeeze minutes.
So for you, it would be Hall and Robinson, then like the Waterman Knell combo.
Yeah, I get Waterman. I don't love it, but I get it. Khalifa's taken on a little bit bigger role.
Yeah,
but he's for only 100 more, and he's definitely going to provide you like a lot more assist upside. But yeah, Knell and Johnson probably only work in a GPP, because in order for them to reach, kind of their ceiling, they're going to need to be on the floor. And if they're on the floor, that means they're hitting shots. So it's kind of economies of scale. Like if you play one and it starts hitting early, then they have pretty big ceiling. But I think just for me, Hall and Robinson is probably where I look first.
Yeah,
Khalifa's a Charlotte guy, right?
Lesson on a Saturday morning. Yep. You love it.
Is Khalifa the Charlotte transfer?
Yep.
Yeah.
That guy sucks, bro. He's an ass.
He is kind of small. All right, let's move on. Stay in the Big 12. West Virginia, OK State. Your boys, Gav, here. West Virginia 136, Oklahoma State 117th. DK, you can leave these games off the slate. We don't need West Virginia, Oklahoma State to make it a 12-gamer. Gav, OK State laying 4.5, 144 total here. What do we got game notes wise? This is Another injury situation that we have here, the second big one on the slate, Jesse Edwards warmed up and was apparently available last game, but didn't play. They've had a couple days off since then. Game thoughts here.
Yeah, we don't need to dive into the nitty gritty here. I will say it's a pretty rough spot for West Virginia. Off the loss at UCF, they're on the second leg of a road back-to-back where they went from West Virginia to South Florida and now back to Oklahoma within a 6-day span. I would be betting Oklahoma State in this spot if not for the fact that Jesse Edwards could play and very likely will play, I think, and which could just submarine that whole thing. So, yeah, he's one of the best bigs in the country for sure. I think he's a phenomenal late swap option because I don't think people are going to click him. If he's playing, it's probably in a pretty close to full minute role, if not the 30-plus minute role he had before, barring fouls. So he's pretty interesting. But outside of that, I don't know how much of this game I'm going to be playing. I don't know if anybody's mainline worthy. It's probably just a couple of GPP mix-ins.
Yeah, same here. I think if Jesse plays, he's full go here. I think if he plays, he's going to start. Wouldn't use him at all if he's not starting here. But yeah, at 8-2, the upside's huge if he does start here. Any DFS thoughts, Kurt? We got to speed it along a little bit here.
Yeah, I think it's two swap options. I think if you're in that range and maybe swap off Baycott and you have enough for Edwards, and then I think you can do the same thing with Raekwon Battle. Just a swap option if you're dead early. He's someone who can get hot, put up 20 or 30 real.
Yeah, I think I'd be more interested in Battle if Edwards doesn't play or doesn't start too. All right, we got 2 games left. A couple ACC tilts here. UNC at Florida State. UNC up to 6 at Ken Pom. That is wild after their season last year. Really playing well defensively. Florida State 76. I'm seeing UNC -6 with the 153 total. We took the under here, Gav, or at least I did. UNC playing really well defensively. Florida State playing really well overall in conference play. What do you think?
Yeah, first meeting UNC won 78-70. Shot quality had it as a 16-point win versus 8. But, I mean, Florida State's tied for second in the ACC with Virginia. Like, oh, my God, I thought Leonard Williams wasn't even going to make it through the year. And they've somehow turned it around. North Carolina has just been so fortunate in terms of opponents just not hitting jump shots against them. They're second in the entire nation in opponent expected 3-point regression. Yeah, 22.5% opponents are shooting from 3 in conference against North Carolina. That's not going to hold forever. I don't know if this is the spot with the Florida State team that's like 222nd in 3-point percentage and 303rd rate-wise. But Florida State, they need to turn you over. 31st forcing turnovers, 263rd in half-court point per possession. And Florida, they're not going to turn the ball over. I think they're like 31st or 30th-ish in turnovers on offense. But, yeah, I mean, in the first game, dude, UNC went 25 of 31 from the free throw line. Florida State went 4 of 8. And North Carolina still only won by 8. So, Florida State now back at home. Hopefully they don't foul their ass off. But UNC, 25th highest transition frequency. They're going to give Florida State the game they want. So, yeah, I haven't bet the under. I'm a little bit more worried about that spot, especially with the regression for their opponents. So, generally think it's a pretty fair spot for Florida State. But, yeah, another one of these gross mispricings on the slate here.
Yeah, Kurt, that would be Armando Baycott is who Gav's talking about here at 7.5. We haven't seen him this cheap in a while. He hasn't had huge ceiling games of late, but, man, Got to love him here in a projected close game, coming off a couple of stinkers. RJ Davis has been one of the top 5 guards in the country. He's at 8.2. I think he's interesting. And then Florida State, your boys, give us the breakdown of them as well.
For UNC, I'm making a roll. I want Baycott or Ingram. Extension of that, maybe one. You can add RJ Davis to that and just play one of the trio. But it's mostly I'm prioritizing those forwards because I didn't need forwards. I hate the forwards today. So I'm playing one of those guys in every single lineup. Ingram can go for 30 rebounds if Baycott gets in bad foul trouble. So make sure you have one of those. Not really noteworthy today, but Elliot Cadeau starting to find ways to put in the ball in the basket. So that's kind of huge for his development. I like that guy a lot. So the fact that he's starting to get more comfortable putting basketball in hoop is really nice to see. On the FSU side, I'd like to see Primo start. I've been waiting for the Primo game. Really thought it was going to come against Syracuse shitty ass defense, but it wouldn't surprise me if you just see him slide into the starting lineup here. Like Hamilton doesn't like to mix it up too much lately, but I could see it, and I would give him a bump. Maybe another guy you kind of swap on to if you're dead already. Swap off George, go to him if you're completely dead from the early games.
Yeah, Gavin.
I'm not playing Babbitt Miller or Watkins.
Yeah, I think he being Primo Spears is pretty interesting here for like the $30 Q. We're basically like waiting for the minutes to come up. He leads the team in usage 29, 25, and 30 minutes last three. So he's basically playing starters minutes. And for Florida State, that's about as good as it gets, right? 29, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Any thoughts there for him, like in the tournament or the Q at 5'7"? I think he's interesting just because like you do know his upside and the usage is there. And then your thoughts on the UNC stud trio.
Yeah, you almost sounded surprised like that he's leading the team in usage. Has Primo Spears ever played on a team that he didn't lead in usage? That ball hog fuck. Like, I honestly wouldn't have even given him a second thought before the show, but I think it makes sense. Just like I said, we know like if he gets his minutes, he can put up some shots with the best of them, good or bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think he's in consideration. Yeah, I think they used Baba Miller to try to slow down Baycott in the post, and I don't know how that's going to work. But yeah, Ingram's big games are on the backs of Baycott foul games, right? And that's also a lot of times when Baycott is $1,000 to $1,500 more expensive than Ingram. But now there's a $400 difference. If Baycott doesn't foul, it's going to be pretty tough for Ingram to get there. But it's almost like the PJ Hall situation in a ways where you just have a power forward who just hoovers so many of his rebounds and just crushes his upside, like with what Shiplin does to him. But yeah, 7,500 Armando Baycott. That's another one of those. I don't even need to think about it. I'm just clicking it.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping that his recent games, I mean, he's going to be popular, right? But like he hasn't been great over the last couple of weeks. He's not shooting it that much. I'm hoping that takes at least a little bit of ownership off of him. I think he'll be higher owned in like the 222 than he will in the $1. Just
probably he's like that, which makes Ingram probably a really good late swap option, just with how much ownership is going to come in on Baycott. If you have a dud early, I think that's where Ingram comes into play as a late swap guy.
Yeah, same. Especially in like the 222 or the Q or something like that. All right, let's go to last game. It's a really important one on the slate. Pitt at Miami. Pitt 68, Miami 64th. Miami really, really struggling here in conference play. Decent spot here at home, Gav. I think this is one of those that I am going to buy in on Miami. It's down to -4 here at home against Pitt. The big news here, Matt Cleveland questionable. How you deal with that news, I think, is the biggest part of the whole slate here, because if you have him in, some of these guys aren't going to project as well. If you project him out, these guys are going to crush, right? It's the last lock on the slate. I think it's the CBS game. So it's the 2:15 lock on DK, but the game usually starts around 2:30 Eastern. So we might not even get lineups, which makes it, just adds another layer to it. But I think there's just so much upside in taking a stand either way on the Cleveland injury in this game, Gav. What do you got for us?
Yeah, if we got to talk if he's, let's say if he's in first, I think then it's pretty much Luga is probably the best play on Miami at that point. Omir should be fine. Bigs have been just dick stomping Pitt all year. But, if Cleveland's out, then that brings in like the possibility where Bensley Joseph is in play. I think he's sub 6K, right? Kaishan George, man, this kid is sick. He's like a scoring wing, 6'6", 6'7"-ish. Like he can run the pick and roll. He can play the 4. Henson guarding him in space in the pick and roll, like that's just a disaster for Pitt. George is probably an absolute slam if Cleveland plays. and you have plenty of people to move around with.
You mean if he's out, right?
Yeah, if he's out. You
Yeah.
have plenty of people to move to if for somehow he's in. Like if it's Toussaint, Owe, Dessou, Dallin Hall, Jackson Robinson. If Jesse Edwards plays, you got Baycott, Ingram, Davis. Like there's options to move and pivot around with. If you just got to leave some PMR, for this late window. But yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at with the injury.
Yeah, Kurt, what's your read on this? The Pitt guys are priced down too. We've seen Hinson play better of late. Carlton, Carrington, the dynamic, I'll call him, Frush point guard for Pitt is priced down. And then Jalen Lowe has really, really played well over the last couple of weeks. He's kind of forced himself into the rotation. Even with Leggett back, it's hard for them to take him off the court. What do you got here DFS-wise?
I think you want to leave PMR just for this game alone. If Cleveland's out, I want to take the over on Amir's rebounds. I don't care what it is. The floor will be 10 if Cleveland's out. He'll have no one to really battle for him boards-wise. Obviously, we're playing George. The guy's been awesome. He passes the eye test, passes the projection test. I want 2 Miami guys if Cleveland is out. It's a priority for me to kind of leave that PMR and hopefully just pray we get news by like 145, which I feel like Miami's been decent about it. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
So
yeah, no,
it's nice
I think
to have that.
Yeah, I think we'll know before lock. Yeah.
And like Gavin said, we have a lot of, let's say it comes at 145. We have a lot of guys in this 2 o'clock window in the 6K range that you can pivot off George. And then you can kind of pivot down if you do play Amir. You got a lot of ways to go there. You can go down to Dessou and then spend up somewhere else. So leave PMR, be by your phones. If Cleveland's out, it's a game that I probably want 3 pieces from. I'll find a Pitt run back between Lowe, Carrington, Henson, maybe even Leggett, surprise start. Yeah, great game environment. I want 3 pieces if Cleveland's out.
Yeah, Kurt, that Amir rebound props at 8.5, by the way.
Ooh, I mean, as soon as you see Cleveland's out, bam.
That might be a decent play, even if Cleveland plays.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah.
Gav,
I mean, I laddered last week. I laddered as soon as Amir got rolled out. They held the Cleveland thing.
Yeah.
And bro, I laddered it on FanDuel and won every single one up to the highest they would go. I think it was like 10.5 or something. And I easily hit the dude.
Thanks for the heads up on that one, Kurt. Gav,
I must have missed that text.
Yeah, right.
I put it in chat. I posted it in the chat.
Yeah,
as an official play. Come on.
All right, Gav. Thoughts on the Pitt guys here? Didn't touch on them as much. They're all kind of in the 6K-ish range. Any priorities there, or one that stands out from the rest?
Yeah, Carrington definitely stands out to me. I think he's in probably a tier of his own. Like Lowe has been good, but dude, Jalen Lowe is 200 less than Wooga Poplar, dude, and Wooga could potentially be playing without Cleveland. Like, so I just don't see myself finding my way to Lowe, regardless of what we've seen from him in the last couple of weeks. I just think Wooga and Carrington are better plays right in the same price range. I just like it's getting his minutes back a little bit. Is he going to continue to play 29, 30 minutes off the bench? We'll see. He's kind of an ancillary, like if you get stuck with the Cleveland news and you need to move around and you land on Ish, I guess it's not the end of the world, but he's like the same price as Primo Spears. So I'm probably Primo in that spot. So I think that's how I look at it on Pitt. Carrington in a tier of his own, then probably Hinton hoping for the 3-point game, and then kind of Lowe and Leggett in the next tier for me.
Yeah. All right. We'll wrap up with one question from the chat, and then we'll give our last thoughts. It's a great one. It's definitely a Barrick play here. Barrick's asking Gavin, last guy in 3.6K. Do you have any greasers down there?
Oh, baby. 3.6.
You have the Marquette guy, right?
Zay Lowry. Yeah, he could do that.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I don't see much under 4K tonight, Barrick. Swerve Baby says no love for Nigel Pack. I don't think the news impacts him too much. I think if we get Cleveland out, it's just a huge bump for Amir, Kaishan George, and Wooga Poplar has had 2 straight bad games, but the minutes are still there, right? We've seen Wooga play Wooga played 35 minutes last game. He had the foul game last Saturday, which was mega tilting, and then 37 minutes the game before. I think Wooga is the second best play in that game behind Kashan George. But yeah, like Omir, Wooga, and George are all, I think, way better plays than Pack at 7K. Do you agree with that, Gav?
Yeah, Pack's going to be a little more scoring reliant. He is doing a little bit better on the peripherals this year than years past. But yeah, like you're talking Nigel Pack at 7K or Taman Lipsy at 7.2. That's not even a discussion.
Yeah. All right, Kurt.
So
let's
this
get
is
your
interesting
last.
right here. I know we're
Okay.
trying to get out of here, but
Yeah.
the forward situation, it's a gross range. It's why I'm kind of bitching about the build today, because there's like from 7K, there's like a huge drop. There's no one in the 6Ks that I feel comfortable with, and it's really fucking tilting. I just rebuilt.
Yeah, you got Dylan Mitchell there who's playing big minutes, but I'm not really going out of my
You
way
need
to
a foul
pick him.
game. You need a foul game from Dessou for Mitchell to hit the ceiling. That's the only issue.
If
Yeah,
this was
I
last
think-
year, I'd play Bediako versus Oso, but Oso's got his balls this offseason.
Yeah, Oso's been great. If it has to be 6'6", like if you have the 6'7", I don't mind Blake Henson or like Juwan Roberts at 6'8".
I mean, Carrington at 6'6". Like, what's wrong with that?
Well, no,
That's
he needs a
That's
forward.
to be a forward.
Yeah,
That's the issue today.
yeah. And then Kurt, give us your last thoughts on the slate. And Gajeski wants to know if you can play the piano.
I can play the piano only for him. Next time I come back to Chicago, if he wants to come down and see me, maybe. Thoughts? Leave some PMR. I think we ended on that. I think it's important to kind of adjust for the news, and maybe you don't know, we could get other random news that we are not expecting. So always good to have the PMR. That's about it. Are we doing the core plays too? Because I kind of got a greasy one ready.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm going to go Primo because you guys talking. I already had him in the pool, but you guys not completely shutting it down quickly. I prefer if he starts, but if he doesn't, I think if you're not looking too good, I think he makes for a great core play. So Mr. Primo Spears in a big game in the rematch versus UNC.
Yeah.
Go Knowles.
Gav, last thoughts on the slate overall, and if you want to give a couple of your favorite plays of the slate. Let's go with like not the obvious ones, off the board play or two.
Yeah. I mentioned Dallin Hall earlier. I think I'm going to play Dallin Hall in my main lineup. Just with the spot, matchup, peripherals, prior shot share. I love Dallin Hall in the spot. I actually had him as a Big 12 breakout guy preseason. So maybe it's biased, maybe it's not. But yeah, whatever goes wrong with Florida State core plays, right? Nothing in the past.
Right.
Every time, bro.
Yeah, my last thoughts are going to be the three big news spots. Just kind of take a stand, go into it with knowing what you're going to do if these guys are in or out. So it's Cleveland, it's Kadari, and Jesse Edwards are the three big ones, with Kadari and Cleveland being the two main ones here. My kind of off the board play is Dylan Dessou. I think he kind of gets lost in the 7K range today because there's just so many good plays right around him, and he's got the ceiling to beat all of those guys. He's burned people the last two Saturdays, and people don't want to go right back to a guy who fouled last time on a big slate. So I like Dessou here. It's a fun slate. I've actually added entries and additional lineups since we started the show because there's a lot of guys that I do want to play. Kurt, you want the last word here? You're muted. Oh, you're ending the show on mute.
Oh no, Cam Jones. Since Florida State core plays suck, Cam Jones will be my other one. Shot dependent, baby.
We are 10 minutes over. We got to run to build our own lineups. I got to go watch this barreling game. Get my parents in town. They're both Terps, so go Terps. We'll see you on Discord. If you're a Run Pure member, we'll be posting lineups and thoughts on the news and all that shit. And we'll have cores in the Discord for the other two slates. We'll be out and about in Chicago today. For Kurt, for Gav, feel better. I know you're kind of feeling like shit today, but we'll see you guys next Saturday.